the sun rose gently over the rolling coffee hills of Antioquia, Colombia, painting the valleys with golden light. But on this particular morning, serenity was shattered by a single, precise gunshot. Miguel Herrera, one of Colombia's most celebrated businessmen, lay dead in the middle of his sprawling estate. Official reports claimed a botched robbery. But the truth ran deeper, deadlier. For Miguel Herrera was not just a coffee magnate or a philanthropist. He was the invisible architect of a drug empire that had remained hidden in plain sight for over 3 decades. And his death was the first domino to fall in a secret war that had stayed in the shadows, until now. Before we dive into this gripping story, drop a comment below and tell us where you're watching from. And if you love stories packed with mystery and drama, don't forget to like this video and hit that subscribe button. There's so much more coming your way. Medellin in the 1970s was a city on the edge, teetering between poverty and ambition, violence and dreams. Nestled in the steep hills of El Poblado were 2 boys, Miguel Herrera and Javier Ortega. They were born to nothing, sons of farmers and seamstresses, raised in one-room shacks where food was often a miracle. But what they lacked in privilege, they made up for in cunning and courage. Miguel was the bold one, eyes sharp like a hawk, always talking, always moving. Javier, quieter but no less dangerous, had a mind like a chessboard, always thinking 3 steps ahead. They sold cigarettes at bus stations, ran errands for mechanics, and eventually began working for a local smuggler who paid them to carry packages, no questions asked. One night they found out what they were really carrying: raw cocaine paste. It was a moment that could have scared them straight. But instead it seduced them. Miguel looked at the shimmering powder and saw opportunity. Javier saw structure, a business. By age 19, they had scraped together enough money to start trading business. At first, it was minor contraband: watches, radios, shoes. But the real money was in the white powder flowing down from the coca fields of southern Colombia. They began courting farmers, bribing police, and learning the routes: river paths, jungle trails, bribed airports. What set them apart was Miguel's charm. He built relationships with exporters, local politicians, and the church. He donated money, hosted public events, and even began dating the daughter of a respected judge. No one suspected the young, smiling entrepreneur had built his fortune smuggling death in powder form. By 1980, they had formed Los Caballeros de la Sombra, a name whispered in back rooms and dark alleys. They operated with discipline and secrecy. Their motto was simple: you cannot kill a shadow. And for a long time, no one could. But shadows grow longer with time. And as their empire expanded, so did the weight of their secrets, their enemies, and the blood on their hands. The boys from El Poblado were no longer survivors. They were kings. Kings of cocaine. And kings, eventually, must fall. By the early 1980s, the cocaine business in Colombia was no longer a fringe enterprise. It had mutated into a storm, white, fast, and unstoppable. And in the eye of that storm stood Miguel Herrera and Javier Ortega. Los Caballeros de la Sombra had grown from a neighborhood operation into a multinational smuggling empire. They had routes from Peru to Panama, mules in Miami, labs hidden in banana plantations, and officials paid in cash, gold, or blood. Their primary innovation was speed. Javier oversaw the creation of a rapid refining process that could turn coca paste into export-grade cocaine in under 72 hours. They leased old fishing boats and outfitted them with hidden compartments, then used fast, agile pilots to navigate through the Caribbean under cover of storms. Each shipment was insured by blood pacts with paramilitary groups who operated like ghost militias. If a shipment was lost, someone paid, with everything. But with success came danger. A rival group, Los Lobos del Valle, led by a brutal ex-military colonel known only as El Gato, began hijacking shipments. They left their victims with their tongues cut out, dumped at the doors of police stations as warnings. Miguel, ever the showman, invited El Gato to a public peace banquet. Over a glass of red wine, he smiled and promised, "If blood must be spilled, let it be clean." 2 days later, El Gato's convoy was ambushed outside Cali. 17 men burned alive inside 2 armored trucks. Miguel was never connected, but the message was clear. The shadows fought back. Meanwhile, Miguel's public persona exploded. He opened a charity to fund poor children's education, started a coffee label that sold internationally, and even received a humanitarian award. He wore a mask of legitimacy so convincingly that journalists called him El Santo Empresario, the saint businessman. But beneath that mask, he was spiraling. The pressure, the enemies, the betrayals. He began sleeping with a pistol under his pillow. He trusted no one, not even Javier. Javier, for his part, watched in silence. He had always preferred the background. But with every lavish party, every TV interview Miguel gave, Javier felt the noose tighten. He warned Miguel, "The higher we rise, the closer we are to the sniper's eye." Miguel laughed it off. He believed they were untouchable. But the white flood was spreading beyond control. The Americans were waking up. And soon, the D would come knocking, with files, satellites, and traitors already planted in the heart of the cartel. By 1985, the world knew there was a storm brewing in Colombia, but they hadn't seen its lightning yet. That was about to change. Miguel Herrera was now a celebrity. Photos of him at charity events, shaking hands with diplomats, even attending mass with bishops circulated in newspapers. Meanwhile, Javier Ortega, his childhood friend, his co-founder, had become a shadow within a shadow. His presence was rarely recorded. He handled the finances, the logistics, the assassinations. He also kept the books. And what he saw in the books terrified him. Someone was bleeding the organization dry. At first, he suspected their regional distributors, men who lived like kings in Medellin, Santa Marta, and Barranquilla. But then he found evidence of secret shipments Miguel had never disclosed, cargo moving through Guatemala and Honduras under shell companies registered in his wife's name. Miguel was skimming from their own empire. Javier's heart shattered. This wasn't about money. It was betrayal, the kind that meant Miguel no longer saw them as partners, but pawns. Meanwhile, the DA was closing in. They had infiltrated the cartel's Miami operation using a mole named Luis Delgado, a former mule turned informant. Luis had been arrested smuggling 3 kilos at the Florida Keys, and rather than rot in prison, he offered everything: names, locations, flight paths. Slowly, he built a case around Miguel. Not Javier. Not yet. Back in Medellin, Miguel was changing. Paranoid. He stopped drinking, stopped smiling. He held secret meetings without Javier. He imported a German shepherd trained to attack on voice command and hired 2 ex-KGB operatives as bodyguards. One night, Javier confronted him. "I know what you did," Javier said in a whisper. "Then you know why I did it," Miguel replied, just as quietly. "You forgot who built this with you." "No," Miguel said, eyes burning. "I remembered who could destroy it." That night, Javier packed a single suitcase and disappeared. Within weeks, people began to die. A trusted lieutenant was found hanging from a bridge, a warning carved into his chest: Trust no one. A pilot Javier had recruited was poisoned in Bogota. A warehouse storing over $10 million worth of product mysteriously exploded. Miguel blamed the Americans. But deep inside, he knew Javier was still out there, and that he was planning something. Then came the betrayal from inside. DEA agents, with the help of Colombian special forces, raided a luxury apartment in Medellin and found one of Miguel's accountants. Tortured and terrified, he gave them names, drop points, and, most damning of all, a recording. It was Miguel himself, speaking at a party. "The government? We own the government. The president's brother snorts my product. You think I'm scared of some gringo with a badge?" The tape went viral in secret diplomatic channels. The U.S. Department of Justice drafted an extradition order. But before it could be executed, Javier struck. At 2:13 a.m., a convoy of 7 black SUVs surrounded Miguel's hacienda in El Retiro. Guards were bribed or killed. Dogs silenced. Explosives were set at the east and west wings. In under 9 minutes, the entire estate was in flames. Screams pierced the night, and Miguel vanished. The next morning, charred bodies were pulled from the ruins, but none were Miguel. Rumors erupted. He escaped in an underground tunnel. He was captured by Javier. He was killed and buried in a field, his face melted to hide the truth. No one knew. All they had was silence. And in that silence, Javier Ortega returned, not as co-founder, but as the sole surviving king of Los Caballeros de la Sombra. He issued one message to his lieutenants. This empire was born in the dark. Let it return to the shadows. But the past never stays buried. And the shadow of Miguel Herrera would rise again, this time not as a king, but as a ghost seeking revenge. For a time, silence reigned. After the destruction of Miguel's estate, the Colombian government declared the legendary drug lord presumed dead. The DA celebrated cautiously. Headlines across South America declared the fall of Los Caballeros de la Sombra. And yet, the flow of cocaine didn't stop. If anything, it surged. Behind the scenes, Javier Ortega operated with the cold efficiency of a surgeon. He shut down flamboyant operations, relocated labs to the Amazon under protection from indigenous militias, and replaced bloodthirsty lieutenants with loyal accountants and tech-savvy logistics men. No more parties. No more headlines. Just product, profit, and silence. But silence doesn't last. Not when ghosts still walk. One evening, 6 months after the Hacienda raid, a package arrived at Javier's villa in Quito. Inside was a cassette tape, a single .45 caliber bullet, and a photo. The photo was old, taken 10 years ago, of Javier and Miguel at a beach in Cartagena, laughing like brothers. Scribbled on the back were 4 chilling words. Brothers die in silence. Javier felt his blood freeze. Only one person in the world could have sent that. Miguel was alive. But where and why wait? The question haunted him. Then the killings began again, not of rivals, but of Javier's own people. His logistics manager was found in a bathtub in Lima, eyes removed. A chemist in Medellin was poisoned at his daughter's wedding. A safe house in Nicaragua was bombed, only hours after Javier had left it. Every death was theatrical, surgical, designed to remind him that Miguel wasn't hiding. He was hunting. The Americans noticed too. The DA reopened Miguel's file under a new codename, La Sombra, the Shadow. And now, they didn't just want him, they wanted both of them. Agent Reina Martinez, a Cuban-American specialist in psychological warfare, was assigned the case. Her mission wasn't just to arrest the cartels, but to break them from within. She began contacting ex-lovers, former employees, distant family members, anyone with leverage over Javier or Miguel. And she found a weakness. A woman named Lucia. Lucia had once been Miguel's lover, before he married. She had a son. Rumors swirled that the boy wasn't Miguel's stepson, but his blood. And that Javier knew. Reina traced the boy to a private school in Panama. Within weeks, the boy was kidnapped, but not by her team. By someone else. Someone faster. Javier received the call at 3:42 a.m. A distorted voice spoke. Lucia's son is safe. But he will remain safe only if you meet me. Where? Cartagena. The same beach. No guards. No guns. Just the truth. Javier didn't hesitate. He boarded a private plane with a single pistol and a knife in his boot. The meeting was cinematic. At sunset, on the same beach where their infamous photograph had been taken, Miguel emerged from the shadows. Thinner. Older. But still very much alive. For a moment, neither man spoke. The wind carried only the sound of waves. I didn't come to kill you, Miguel said. Then why? Javier asked. To give you a choice. Miguel revealed his plan, a final exodus. He wanted to dismantle the cartel from the inside, take their billions, and vanish forever, into Africa, Asia, or the Pacific. We've played gods long enough, he said. It's time to disappear. But Javier wasn't ready. He believed they could still hold the empire, if they cut the Americans out, cleaned house, and went back to basics. The meeting ended with no handshake. No agreement. Just a warning. Next time, Javier said, I bring a gun. Next time, Miguel replied, I bring the boy. And so began the final war, not over drugs or money, but over legacy. 2 brothers. 2 visions. 1 empire burning between them. And the whole world, rival cartels and political puppets, caught in the crossfire. The meeting on the beach wasn't just a reunion, it was a spark. Within weeks, assassinations surged across the continent. Safe houses in Panama, Bolivia, and Ecuador went up in smoke. Cocaine shipments vanished mid-transport. Entire labs were stripped clean, equipment gone, staff murdered, evidence erased. The civil war inside Los Caballeros de la Sombra had begun. Javier Ortega, still commanding the cartel's operational machinery, tightened his control. Every dollar was tracked, every phone tapped, every courier vetted. His paranoia became a weapon and a prison. He executed anyone suspected of siding with Miguel. Old friends disappeared overnight. Loyalty was rewarded with silence, and fear kept the engines running. But Miguel didn't want the empire. He wanted to end it on his terms. Operating from the shadows, Miguel orchestrated a brilliant sabotage campaign. He leaked critical shipping manifests to the DEA, then rigged the raids so his enemies within the cartel would be captured while his allies escaped. He funded protests in Colombia under the guise of anti-corruption NGOs, stirring public outrage to pressure government partners into cutting ties with Javier. And he sold off cocaine at below-market prices to crash the street value, draining the cartel's revenue and causing internal dissent. He called it controlled demolition. But the DEA wasn't just watching. They were preparing to strike. Agent Reina Martinez now had a clear picture of the fractured empire. With Javier and Miguel at war, she saw her opportunity. She reached out to both, separately, offering a deal. Turn the other in. Walk away with freedom. And the blood ends here. Both men refused. But one of them was lying. The betrayal came from within. In late 1987, Reina received an anonymous file containing the location of one of Javier's major offshore accounts, flight logs, and satellite images of a remote jungle airstrip used for trafficking. The intel led to a historic raid. 38 cartel members were arrested, and $200 million in product seized. The world cheered. The DEA hailed it as the first major wound to Los Caballeros de la Sombra. But Reina knew the truth. Someone had delivered Javier's heart to her on a platter. And the fingerprints, subtly buried in the metadata of the files, traced back to Miguel Herrera. He had broken the code. He had betrayed his brother. Javier lost everything. His core network was in shambles. His most trusted pilot, dead in a prison cell. His chief accountant, missing. His backup IDs, frozen. Desperate, Javier vanished into the jungle with a skeleton crew and 2 duffel bags of cash. For the first time in 20 years, Miguel Herrera had no rival. But he didn't celebrate. In a small villa on the Pacific coast, Miguel sat with Lucia and her son, who now knew the truth, that his father was the ghost haunting Colombia's underworld. Miguel tried to build a life there. He bought books, cooked meals, played guitar on the porch. But peace was foreign to him. Every car backfiring in the distance sounded like a gunshot. Every news headline felt like a shadow. Every night he dreamed of Cartagena and the beach where his empire had begun. Then came the final blow. Javier, sick, starved, and hunted, was spotted crossing into Venezuela. Rumors swirled that he had contacted the FARC, offering his final intel in exchange for protection. Before he could vanish completely, he made a call. To Miguel. "I don't want revenge," Javier whispered. "What do you want?" Miguel asked, cautious. "A legacy. Don't let them rewrite our story." And then the line went dead. 2 weeks later, Javier's body was found, in a shallow grave, riddled with bullets, his hands tied, his tongue cut out. No one claimed the hit. Miguel never spoke of him again. But the world would. With Javier gone, Miguel orchestrated his final act. He liquidated the last of his assets, gold bars, crypto holdings, stashed euros. He sent anonymous donations to families of those harmed in the cartel's wake. And then, like a magician performing his final trick, Miguel Herrera vanished. No one ever found his body. Some say he died in the Pacific, others claim he's alive in Thailand or Nigeria, living under a new name. But his legend endures. Los Caballeros de la Sombra collapsed. What was once an empire of fear, money, and blood crumbled like ash in the wind. But the ghosts remained. Today, in hidden corners of Colombia, whispers still carry his name. A child asks her grandmother why the men in suits came that night. A retired pilot drinks alone, staring at an old photo of Miguel and Javier on the beach. And in the jungles where planes once landed under moonlight, only silence answers. But if you listen closely, you can still hear the echoes of the two kings who ruled the White Empire, until it consumed them both. Thanks for watching. If you're hooked on gripping stories like this, be sure to like, share, and subscribe for more thrilling tales. Your support means the world to us. With love and gratitude, I invite you to join our community for more captivating content. Subscribe now for more stories that will keep you on the edge of your seat. Thank you.